ORDFILM presents.
I couldn't make up my mind whether or not to say the word genocide. We Armenians in the past usually regarded the Turk as the bogeyman. Journalists should alleviate conflict situations. I continue to discover Turkey for myself. Interrupted relations and prospects for normalization. When seeking reconciliation, Armenian and Turkish neighbors face an irreconcilable past. This is what the interrupted relations are all about. But the borders of the media are open. Each day, they are freely crossed by flows of information. However, this information is not always unbiased. This is the theater square of Yerevan, which became the public stage for the Karabakh movement in 1988. During the totalitarian period, thousands of people participated in rallies here and brought with them the spirit of free speech and struggle. The first publications of the new free media surfaced here. People have renamed this place Freedom Square. What happened to Armenian journalism after independence? First, it became free journalism, which did not exist before. Journalism as a profession existed, but it was a completely different thing. Taksim Square in Istanbul takes its name from the building that provided water to different districts of the city. It represents the birth of the modern Republic of Turkey. Over the years, the square has been a unique site for rallies and demonstrations, for exchanging opinions and for receiving information. Today, most of the Turkish media belongs to large private companies. As a result, they are dependent on those companies. This fact restricts and influences the independence of the media. Company owners seriously impact on the free press. This is NTV, one of the biggest TV stations in Turkey, which only broadcasts news programs. Mete Çubukçu prepares his TV reportage right here. When I came to Yerevan for the first time back in 1994, I did not know how to report things. I didn't know much and had difficulty presenting what I saw. I didn't know how to use the term genocide, even whether to say it or not. When I revisited Armenia in 2009, it was much easier for me to cover April 24th and everything else going on in the country. In the ensuing 15 years, a more favorable environment had been created for news coverage.
Freedom is a very relative thing. I think the Turkish media is more free, more liberal than, let's say, 10 or 15 years ago. We have overcome most of the taboos. However, there are still some taboos. For example, the word genocide and so-called genocide is a taboo here in Turkey.
This is one of the most famous TV stations in Armenia, which covers Armenian-Turkish relations through documentaries as well. The author of these films is Artyom Yerkanyan. He spends most of his working day in this room, and the ideas for his documentaries are conceived here. I am constantly surprised when I see positive things coming out of Turkey. This stems from my not being well informed. Had I sacrificed the truth, I would have kept silent about this. However, I always mention the positive whenever I see it. Once, in a report prepared in Armenia, I said that the melody of one of the songs of the Turkish nationalists belongs to the Armenian bard Sayat Nova. The ensuing reaction was very negative. This stems from a lack of awareness. There is so much that the society isn't aware of. The Yerevan Press Club has been conducting a comparative study of the Armenian and Turkish media for about a year. Boris Navasartyan, who heads the press club, argues that the media sector in Turkey has undergone serious change. If Armenian-Turkish issues were previously only being covered in the Turkish media every April 24th, now there is periodic reportage about the lives of people. The media could serve as mediators for mutual understanding and recognition. But the professional gap and the law that impedes free speech prevents this from happening. It is not that our reporters are lacking as professionals, but the effort, the professional preparedness for studying and understanding Turkey is missing. There is another important factor in Turkey's case. It is their state policy, their laws. Yerkir Media is a TV station with a unique approach to Armenian-Turkish relations, which is reflected in its daily news programs and political talk shows. Both in Armenia and in Turkey, this TV station is usually associated with being a loudspeaker for the Armenian Revolutionary Federation, Dashnaktsutyun, the most outspoken critic of Turkey. We are not just trying to provide objective reportage, but also fill an important gap in the Armenian media. Armenians in Turkey and Turks in Armenia mostly exercise their media freedoms to the extent allowed. A journalist working in the host country never has the occasion to feel alone. In Turkey, from a professional standpoint, I have always felt comfortable, even while being aware that I have been followed. It's never caused any difficulties for me. I've come to regard those following me as my own personal security squad. The only roadblock was that I couldn't enter Nagorno-Karabakh. I have never faced any other obstacles in Armenia. I can't say why they didn't let me in Karabakh. All I can assume is that the period was a sensitive one, and I was a journalist. İpek is a journalist at Milliyet, one of Turkey's biggest dailies with about 300 employees. She is interested in Armenia. Her last visit was an attempt to get a better grasp of neighboring Armenia and its people. Our newspaper devotes extensive coverage to Armenian-Turkish relations. In 1 year, I have been to Armenia twice. I went the first time when President Gül visited Yerevan to watch the football match. The second time was after the protocols were signed. We also knew that negotiations had begun on the Armenian-Turkish protocols. Being a large newspaper, we couldn't overlook the matter and ran a series of articles. Having gained a new significance, Armenian-Turkish relations opened up a new field of interest for İpek. It was called football diplomacy in the media. These relations were associated with the Armenia-Turkey football match in Yerevan, which the President of Turkey attended at the invitation of Armenia's president. I have been writing about minority issues, including Armenians, for a long time. When the question of opening the border came up last year, I began to write on the matter more often. I visited Armenia for a week and published articles about my encounters. This is the second stage of football diplomacy. Reporters converged on the Turkish city of Bursa, where the return leg of the Turkey-Armenia football match was to take place. Serge Sargsyan, the president of Armenia, arrived as well. The heavy artillery of the Armenian and Turkish media have set up base here, at the stadium named for Ataturk. It is from here that Turkish and Armenian TV are broadcasting live to their viewers and reporting on developments of this new stage of football diplomacy.
Mostly is concentrated with the relationship between Turkey and Armenia nowadays, especially. If you ask when it started, of course, it started with the start of the football diplomacy between two countries. And, you know, when President Abdullah Gül attended to a football match in Yerevan, there was a huge interest for the Turkish media also.
Examples of this interest were Can Ertuğrul's interviews with his Armenian colleagues and NTV's evening live link-ups with the football players. At the time, I never read of any criticism directed against this magazine. This is the magazine covering the Armenia-Turkey football game. This is a Turkish player. This one, however, is not an Armenian player. He is from Cameroon. The next stage of the football diplomacy was played out on a basketball court in Yerevan. Sport was once again at the center of attention for Armenian and Turkish journalists. At the basketball game, just like at the Bursa football match, meetings between journalists from Armenia and Turkey were organized. Again, it was a good opportunity to get reacquainted and to exchange first-hand information. I miss those Turkish journalists who came to Armenia and whom we had first met in Turkey. We had become professional friends. Both Turkish and Armenian media outlets showed great interest in these games. I believe there is an unquenchable thirst on the Turkish side to understand, because for years Armenians were a taboo concept for them. Gevorg Ter-Gabrielyan, director of the Eurasia Partnership Foundation, believes that there are fewer free reporters in Armenia than in Turkey. It is better not to write if you are to write poorly and incorrectly. In the end, misinformation hurts rather than helps your own people.
I haven't been to Armenia, but seems I'm gonna visit Armenia if it goes like this, because we have been sending more and more correspondence every day. As the peace process, as a process between two countries fastens, then more Turkish journalists will surely visit Armenia.
Many journalists are visiting Armenia for the first time. It's a new experience for them. They don't know what to expect. When it comes to human relations, they hesitate. The titles of their articles express new and unfamiliar approaches. They are learning about certain pages of history for the first time. Little by little, they start to understand. The inequality of the two countries' technical capacities is evident. Armenian TV stations do not use mobile TV transmitters. They are today considered a basic means of broadcasting. Turkish TV strives to broadcast important events via their own mini-mobile units. Of course, it is pointless to compete with a newspaper that has tens of thousands of readers and millions in advertising revenue. They are in a different weight class, and the same can be said about TV stations. In a country of 75 million, the media will naturally be formidable. Each TV station has a number of mobile transmitters. We in Armenia only have 2, and one is broken. Istanbul is the biggest city in Turkey, with a population of about 20 million. No wonder the main Turkish media outlets are located here. And those based in other cities, for instance in the capital Ankara, have their correspondence and branch offices here as well. The vast majority of Armenia's print media are located in this building, appropriately named the Media Building. Next to it operates Armenia's largest print house, where the most well-known Armenian periodicals are printed. Their financial resources are much larger than ours. For example, the Turkish paper Zaman has a print run of 700,000, and that's only for Turkish domestic consumption. Thus, their financing is also top-notch. Dogan Media Group is one of the largest diversified media conglomerates in Turkey, boasting 25 TV stations and more than 100 periodicals. Now, we are in the offices of Channel D TV station, which broadcasts the most popular news programs in Turkey. Sure, from a technical and financial viewpoint, they are much better off. Despite its wealth, this largest media conglomerate in Turkey can collapse. Dogan Group is under scrutiny. Today, it's not a matter of wealth, but rather how one's resources are being used. Yerkir Media is not considered one of the wealthier TV stations. But this didn't prevent us from interviewing Minister Gül in Paris in 2004. Knowing Turkish helps Hagop Çakıryan from Ask Daily to get information directly from the source, because news filtered through intermediary sources is not always credible. Let's look at how newspapers often disseminate information to shape public opinion. Sometimes, while molding public opinion, they also want to check what the reaction from the other side is. If information is disseminated with such considerations in mind, it can't be considered credible. That's why I only rely on official sources. Hagop Çakıryan is frequently dispatched to Turkey on press business, where he can observe the daily problems of the Turkish people on the spot. He has his own opinion on the radical approaches taken by the Armenian and Turkish sides and believes that the peoples of the two countries can avoid such extremism by first of all getting to know each other. There are smaller Turkish newspapers that publish quite distastefully written articles against Armenia and Armenians. Of course, we criticize them from time to time, but rarely republish them. Hrant Dink, founder and chief editor of the Agos newspaper, was gunned down in Istanbul on January 19, 2007, while entering his offices at 74 Halasgargazi Street. Thousands of Turks took to the streets to protest the murder of Hrant Dink, an Armenian, a victim of a Turkish nationalist. They proclaimed, "We are all Hrant Dink. Armenians too were all Hrant Dink." The murder was condemned on both sides in equal fashion. This was unprecedented. A newspaper was needed to speak to Armenians in Turkish and to write about Armenians. It wasn't only Armenians who started to read the paper. Turks also started reading it. They were the Turks who knew nothing about Armenians, but wanted to. But how? Armenians were like a closed box. After Hrant's murder, this process slowed down a bit, but the paper reached a wider audience. Sarkis Seropian, who heads the Armenian section at the Agos newspaper, guides us to the study where Hrant Dink worked. He tells us that from the very beginning, it was due to Agos that the Turkish public started to get to know Armenians, since it was the first Armenian periodical also published in Turkish. After Hrant's death, the print run of the paper doubled. The demand increased. The number of pages and employees also increased. The price also increased. The Armenian and Turkish reaction to the murder of Agos editor Hrant Dink remains unprecedented, a singular occurrence. Minutes after expressing condolences, the two sides returned to their opposing positions.
Unfortunately, there are so many English-based Armenian sources available. And we usually, although we are quite interconnected two nations, there's a huge Armenian community here in Turkey, but usually Turkish press doesn't refer to those speaking Turkish in Armenia. We usually take the news from the West.
The internet is an accessible source of information. It provides more possibilities to use Turkish sources. Although I speak no Turkish, reprints and links to the Turkish media have become common in the Armenian web, and I use them. Usually, we get our news in English from the internet or from our journalist colleagues in Armenia, which is rather rare. Maybe Armenia faces a similar problem. There are few English-language sites. It is important for me to have reporters see things with their own eyes. But our news is mostly based on foreign sources. The information sector could be much more productive if better relations existed. The barbed wire strung along the Armenian-Turkish border is due to the problems of the past, which are directly or indirectly covered almost every news day. Consumers in this information war are told what they need to know. Others decide for them what it is they need to know. Every journalist must make a confession. Have I been a fighter in that war or not? Everyone decides for themselves where the mission of being a journalist ends and that of a fighter in the information war begins. Professional meetings are usually to exchange work experience. In the case of Armenian and Turkish journalists, it's firstly mutual trust that is exchanged. They open the borders of relations by getting to know each other as individuals. Individuals are able to find a common language with each other. Apart from the state policies, human relations are important. Here, journalists are on the front line. For a journalist, truth must be the priority.
Rather than pumping that, nationalism, which allows our newspapers to be sold, which allows our TV channels to be watched, because it's a very short-scope policy. I think we have to be more open-minded and think about the future, what's going to happen 10 years after that.
There is no such thing as peace journalism. There is only one thing: ethical journalism. Journalists should write the truth, be objective, and use trustworthy sources. Their writing should be free of hostile expressions. These are just the initial steps. They will continue. This gives hope that someday journalists will step back from the information war and return to the peaceful platform of unbiased journalism. This is called Letter-Axe Triangle. Here are the two opposing sides and their political elites, those state bodies which are to develop relations with each other. Today, they have difficulties in forming these relations. Below are the two peoples, and here, in between, are the media outlets, intellectuals, and the civil society. We have now created a horizontal link here, and what remains is to work in these directions, to increase the impact of journalists, civil society, and other groups, both up and down.